You know, as geeky and nerdy as this may sound, when I reminisce on my old ideas of love and my old ideas of romance, I draw parallels between love and romance with with how I felt about video games, as funny as that sounds. And I thought about it one day when I was playing a game, and it didn't feel as good as I remembered it, and that triggered a moment of clarity and an epiphany. I think back to The Legend of Zelda. And when I was a kid playing Zelda, opening up these worlds and these possibilities, um, and finding new swords, new items, and upgrading and doing all those things made me feel like I was accomplishing major things. Major things. And as the graphics became even better. I remember playing Might and Magic. I was a more cerebral kid. Some of my friends were playing Tecmo Bowl, and I thought that Tecmo Bowl was one of the silliest games in the world. It was at that moment that I realized, I was a little bit more cerebral. I wasn't better than my friends. I was just cerebral. And these quests that I would go on in games, I was partial to role-playing games and strategy games and stuff like that. I would explore, and I had this eagerness and this excitement whenever I opened another part of the game by doing something right. And this continued on through the different eras of video gaming and all that. But ultimately, in the end, we're sitting here looking at PlayStation 4s and 5s and all kinds of things. As I grew up, it became painfully apparent to me those worlds that I was creating were bits of pre-existing information that were programmed and fused to a ROM set. There came a day when I realized that there was no little world inside of those games, only events to be triggered. When you know the truth of something, you no longer look at it as a mystery, as a beautiful mystery. You look at it very clinically. In the end, I still enjoyed video games, but guess what? I didn't enjoy them necessarily for the adventure. I enjoyed them for the technology that was implemented in them. I enjoyed them for the level of design. And then I became a collector of them. The worlds that were contained within those cartridges and those CD-based games, the worlds were no longer of any interest to me, because the only thing that had changed were the graphics. That was all that changed about the Quest: the graphics, and the sound, the audio. The technology changed, but the concept was the same. And when I figured out that the concept was pre-programmed, and that there really was no open world as far as a game was concerned, I couldn't enjoy them the same way. And this is how I feel about the idea of romantic love. Initially, it was magic. It was all the things that video games were to me, believe it or not. As far as the discoveries, the eagerness to want to play the game. Once I figured out the ingredients of the game, the inner workings of the game, I became less likely to be a player and more of a collector. I don't play the game of romance anymore. And this doesn't mean that I don't have sex, because I love the physicality of being with a woman. This doesn't mean that I don't have any interactions with women. I like the company of a beautiful woman. But I realize that the magic that was associated with them is very much chemically based. And once you understand a chemically based emotion or reaction, and that it has nothing to do with how great and wonderful I am as a man or how horrible I am as a man, but every bit to do with the biology of the two human beings involved, it makes it less magical. The unfortunate thing is that women have a desire to be treated magical, and there's nothing magic about them. There's nothing magic about men. There's nothing magic about either of us. Yet, the fantasy still remains. How do you survive and how do you function when you see that it's the same thing as a video game? It runs the same, it operates the same, it has a very similar chipset. How do you put everything on the line for something that you know is a game? You don't. And I think that's what makes dating hard if you're going to date in this day and age, because the demand is that you take your real life person and put them in peril, and put that person in peril for a game that's about as real as Zelda. That's the expectation now, men. The first thing you're going to have to do is get it out of your system that what you're feeling and what she's feeling are scripts that are dictated by biology. Anything that you have within you that's magical is better spent on you. And if you have children, it's better spent on giving them those magical experiences come Christmas time, come birthdays, so that they can grow into well-rounded human beings. Because here's the news flash, unfortunately. And I told a kid this one time that I was mentoring. I said, what are you so angry about? You have your whole life to lose faith in everything. You have your entire life, and you're ahead of schedule. I would not give my magic to anyone other than myself, or my child. I would not give anything magic. I don't believe in God per se, but my daughter does, because she needs that. She needs that little bit of magic to know that it's going to be all right, even though I know that it may not be. My way of thinking is applicable to all facets of my life. Every facet of my life is dictated by knowing the truth. And unfortunately, knowing that a video game is just a bunch of numerical programs and calculations as opposed to a cart full of adventure, it prevents me from having that same excitement. Thus, I don't exude the same level of enthusiasm for it that, let's say, a 9-year-old might. Can you imagine how that translates in love? Can you imagine that? It's one of the downfalls of being clear capsule. And when you're clear capsule and you see everything, it's very difficult to hide the look on your face that you've seen everything. It's very difficult to hide that beyond what you're after, you have very little interest in what's being said at that table. I think clear capsule can be viewed as extraordinarily selfish behavior. It could be viewed as extreme narcissism. But I think narcissism has a level of subconscious obliviousness. I don't think many people that are narcissistic are even aware that they're narcissistic, which is why you can't talk to them, and which is why they don't introspectively think about their actions and what they do. They just experience, and that's in a nutshell. That's it. That's all they can do. When you're clear capsule, you've seen enough of the truth to form a logical opinion that doesn't bring comfort. It simply brings truth. For certain things that I want, I do imitate romance. For certain outcomes that I want, I do imitate those things that a person might want me to. But I always do it with the understanding that I'm on a mission myself to secure what I'm after. Be that of a physical nature, of a moment of emotional edification. Sometimes men purchase. And it's okay to spend money on a woman. I mean, you spend money on your hobbies and on your video games, on your golf clubs. I don't view women as any different. You shop, you pick, you choose, and you hope your purchase was one of high quality. And that's not taking away from the humanity of a woman. That is just the absolute example of turning a human being into a utility. And in that way, we are now on equal footing. I'm on equal footing with a woman because I understand and I perceive very similar to how they do. Minus getting caught up in the moment. Men, it is time to wake up. It's time to shrug off the sad reality that Santa doesn't exist, neither does Mrs. Claus. It's time to shrug off that layer of fantasy and start dealing with reality. Leave the anger behind, leave the venom behind. But figure out why you are, first off, purchasing the game, playing the game, and enjoying the game. And make sure that you're enjoying it and playing it for reasons that aren't delusional. Make sure you understand that that cartridge consists of nothing but transistors and CPUs and GPUs. That's all it is. There's no magic in that box. And there's no magic in that bedroom. There's endorphins and there's orgasms. Beyond that, there isn't anything magical going on. Smash that subscribe button. Like us. I say us, me, myself, and I. On YouTube, we may be switching formats depending on how YouTube suppresses me. If, for some reason I'm asked to go and try to get a monetary channel, it's of no interest to me right now. But, things, as they grow, you never know what happens. I'm not after money. I've got a job. Anyway, thanks for listening to our podcast, and take care.